Should Arsenal sack Mikel Arteta? Hey guys, Fletch here, bringing you another Fletch Talks video, and this video is concerning the big burning question that is surrounding Arsenal Football Club right now. Should Arsenal sack manager Mikel Arteta? It seems to be a question that has once again divided the Arsenal fan base, with many seemingly losing faith and confidence in the Spaniard already, despite him only being in charge of the Gunners for less than a year. Currently, the Gunners lie 15th in the table, and they are 5 points clear of the relegation zone with 4 wins, 1 draw and 7 defeats from their opening 12 games. And that's enough for some of the fans to already turn on the Spaniard, as the mainstream media has already begun discussing the possibility, the ever slightly possibility of this mad season turning into a relegation fight for the Gunners in this campaign. Arteta, of course, was originally Pep Guardiola's assistant manager at Manchester City before being brought in by Arsenal in December last year. He made his official managerial debut on Boxing Day in the 1-1 draw Arsenal had with Bournemouth, and since then he's gone on to manage 49 games for the Gunners, winning 29, drawing 7 and losing 13. And in the midst of all that, of course, he did manage to guide Arsenal to an FA Cup triumph, something I believe gets a little bit overlooked by many because fans and supporters disregard the domestic cup as a big achievement nowadays or a big deal anymore. But you have to look at it within this year alone. Arsenal and Arteta, along with many other clubs, but Arteta in particular, because obviously he's beginning this rebuilding process at Arsenal, has had to deal with the issues that have been left behind by both Arsene Wenger and Unai Emery. A sea of underperforming players, the likes of big money signing Nicola Pepe, Hector Bellerin, Mustafi, David Luiz, Granit Xhaka, just to name a few. He's also had to deal with a dreadful defence, a defence that was lacking any sort of discipline and any sort of shape, a weak and spineless midfield, a lot of dead wood in that team, in that squad that needs to be moved on ASAP. A club hierarchy that seemed to see the football club as more of a money-making cash cow kind of business than the actual football club itself. A club structure that's seen a lot of change within the past year alone. Players causing off the pitch issues. Looking at you, Mesut Ozil. A fair few injuries to contend with as well. And of course, stupid and ridiculous errors and mistakes made by certain individuals, particularly in big games. And on top of that, of course, there have been no fans in the stadium because of a national lockdown, which definitely hasn't helped matters. And of course, transfer issues, which, you know, go part and parcel of being a manager, but none more so than at Arsenal Football Club. I think in saying that though, I think you have to give Arteta some credit along the way. I think on the flip side of this, he managed to rectify a few things that were wrong with this club as a whole, and I think none more so than with the playing squad. They were unbeaten this calendar year, if you remember, until they met Manchester City, the first game back after lockdown. They also went on to beat last season's champions Liverpool, a Liverpool squad that completely blew their competition out of the water and strolled to a Premier League triumph. Okay, you could argue that by the point of these two teams playing, Liverpool had already wrapped up the title and probably weren't putting in 100% to their remaining fixtures. But it was still an encouraging sign for Arsenal to go on and beat last season's champions nonetheless. And of course, as I mentioned, Arsenal did go on to win the FA Cup and as a result, go on to participate in the Community Shield and win that as well. You can completely disregard the Community Shield if you want. I just thought it was a worthy anecdote to put in. But I don't think you can disregard the winning of the FA Cup, the biggest domestic trophy arguably in Europe and the world. So, you know, fair play to Arsenal and Arteta for achieving that goal. But the manner in which they won it, many will say, was extremely defensive and not a great watch for the Gunners last season. And whilst that may be true, they did play a very defensive style, especially in the bigger games where Arsenal were considered more the underdogs. I don't think Arteta really had a choice. I think his hands were tied behind his back and he was forced to play that more defensive style. I think when you look at the playing squad of Arsenal, you see that they lack in key areas to play a more open and attacking style. And I don't think Arteta really trusted his defence an entire lot to play that open and attacking style. So I think in some regards, he was forced to play that. Forced to play that way. And besides, I mean, who cares if he plays that kind of style? Jose Mourinho, he does it pretty much every week at Tottenham, and he gets applauded for doing so, often getting the word masterclass following his name in match reports and stuff like that, and being said by pundits after he manages to, you know, play very defensively and either steal 3 points or even get a draw in games where Tottenham aren't supposed to win, or any other team that he's managed in the past several years. So, you know, I don't think it's a massive deal to say that Arsenal were negative in their triumph for the FA Cup. But in saying that, who cares? Who really cares? Arteta played the way he did. He won the trophy, and that's all that matters. And I think he deserves credit for that. When Arteta first arrived at the Emirates, of course, he received a lot of praise from his mentor in Pep Guardiola. And I think that over time, there's been flashes and moments where you can say that Arteta is trying to implement his own style of play on this squad. Whether it's getting the ball down and playing out from the back, whether it's these little triangles they're trying to make across the pitch, or whether it's using fullbacks more in more offensive areas, that kind of thing. I think it's rubbed off on a few of the players, and it's definitely been evident at times. Not consistently, not in major parts, but definitely in certain areas you can kind of see what Arteta is trying to do with this squad. And I think with that being said, of course, it's a big reason as to why certain events have happened during his time at Arsenal, and certain good events at that. You look at the signing of Thomas Partey, for example. We all know his quality. We all have seen him at Atletico Madrid. And I think his signing was a big statement for both Arsenal and Arteta, and it showed the kind of direction and ambition that Arsenal and Arteta want to implement on the squad and implement on the club going forward. And not only that, but that also came around about the time of the deal that saw Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang commit his future to the club. Of course, the superstar Gabonese striker was under threat of leaving the club when his contract was to expire at the end of next season. And, you know, whether it was PR or not, Aubameyang came out when he signed and said that Arteta was a big reason behind him staying at the club. Yeah, of course, maybe money was also a big factor, but I think that Aubameyang does strike me as a guy who would be reasonable with managers. He also would understand the club, and I think the fan base as well love him, and I think that love is reciprocated. I think he loves them back as well. So I think that was also a big factor. Yes, his form may have nosedived since signing that new contract, but if Arteta can bring in the right players around him and build the squad around him, particularly from an attacking point of view, I'm confident his form will pick up and he will start seeing the Aubameyang that we first saw burst onto the Arsenal and Premier League scene when he arrived. But whilst it's all well and good, bringing in fresh faces, keeping superstar players at the club and winning the occasional trophy here and there, there's been one major issue which has constantly been a factor within the reign of Mikel Arteta. It was even before this, I'd say, but it's become more of an issue right now given the events and circumstances that have gone on to be within Mikel Arteta's reign, and it concerns one Mesut Ozil. The often outspoken character has been left out of Arsenal's playing squad for this current campaign, and his career at the Gunners at the Emirates appears to be over. And I can't really say that I blame either side. I can't really say that either party is at fault for what's going on right now, unless there's something bigger going on behind the scenes that we're not fully aware of. But Ozil's extremely big contract appears to be a stumbling block for many potential buyers, as they don't want to pay the insane amount of wages he's on. And let me tell you, he's on some insane amount of wages. Something that the club, of course, gave him a few years ago. The story there is that both Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez were on their way out of the club. Sanchez definitely, Ozil more 50-50. And to tie one of them down because they didn't want to lose both, they gave Ozil a massive money contract, a big money contract. And to be honest, can I blame Ozil for taking that extremely big contract? No, because the club were being run a shambles back then. They still kind of are in a way. But back then, more of a shambles than ever. They offer Ozil a massive contract because they don't want to lose both. And Ozil takes the money, and I cannot blame him. But it's so frustrating with a guy who's got so much talent just doesn't perform week in, week out. His performances haven't been the best. They've not been good enough. They've not been consistent enough. And it's so frustrating that a top-class talent can do that and get paid so much money for that kind of thing. And now he's not even playing. He's a guy who's constantly divided opinion, maybe even since Arsenal bought him many, many years ago. And I guess the reason is, as to why Arteta isn't playing him, is because of what I alluded to. Maybe there's something bigger going on behind the scenes we're not fully aware of. Maybe Arteta just doesn't trust him. But it's a bigger problem now more than ever because Arsenal right now in games are not creating as many chances as what they would like. Hence why I think Aubameyang's form has declined in recent weeks. And when you're lacking that creativity in midfield, when you're lacking that vision in midfield, something which Ozil possesses a lot of, you have to question why Ozil isn't being considered in the squad, wasn't even included in the squad, because he possesses what Arsenal are lacking right now. But it's just not being used. And I think it's a huge call by Arteta in the first place, and obviously it's one he feels he needs to take. I just think that the squad overall is lacking some star quality. There's not really much trust in any player beyond the likes of Aubameyang. I'd see that teammates, and it's not just Ozil, I see that teammates of his are not up to a level of standard. They're not putting in the kind of top draw performances that you'd expect. But of course, they are playing week in, week out, and they are trusted more over a guy who possesses something that Arsenal as a squad, as a whole, are clearly lacking right now. But I will leave you with this. I will leave you with my opinion over the entire subject. And I would state that given the past few years of Arsene Wenger's reign, towards the end of his reign as manager, the year and a half Arsenal spent under Unai Emery, there's no quick fix to these huge issues that Arsenal as a club are facing right now. There's no quick fix to the problems that both them two managers left behind. And expecting a manager of Mikel Arteta's stature, who, let's face it, is a novice still, this is his first managerial job after all, to fix all of these issues in 1 year, heap all of this pressure, all of this, these issues, these problems onto the shoulders of a novice manager, is laughable for him to even consider to fix within under a year. There are big problems at this club. There's no doubt about it. We can all see it. There are big problems at this club, and Arteta is doing his best to steady the ship through these troubled waters. And let's face it, winning a couple of trophies here and there within these problems, within these times, it's still a pretty big deal for a squad that's clearly lacking on star quality, consistency, and confidence. So I think he needs to be respected and applauded for doing that. His record may not be the best. When you put it into context, his record is mainly against the likes of lower league opposition and, of course, opposition from Europa League games and FA Cup games that were of a lower league standard. So it may not be the best, but I would argue that if you go and look this up, I think I'm right in saying that Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, when he took charge back in 2015, had a very similar record to Mikel Arteta's of now. And look how far Liverpool have come from that point. I sympathise with Arsenal because I'm seeing parallels between where we were as a club, where Liverpool were as a club, to where you all are now. And I see that there are as many parallels to us over the past decade alone. But I think with some persistence and with some patience, we overcame it, and I think that Arsenal can as well. And of course, Liverpool went on to win Premier League and Champions League titles. Arteta and Arsenal may have something similar lined up in their future if they can persist and be patient with the process. Because let's face it, since the club legend of Wenger has left, they went for the manager with the big CV in Unai Emery. Clearly, didn't work out. You went for the club legend route, you went for the Manchester United under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Chelsea under Frank Lampard kind of route with hiring Freddie Ljungberg. That clearly didn't work out. And now you're trying with a new manager, a young manager, a novice manager, in the hope that he can build something great over a longer period of time. And I'm not saying it won't be tough. I'm not saying it won't be all smooth sailing, happy, sunshine, rainbows, whatever you want to call it. But at some point, you have to draw the line somewhere and trust the process. Because if you don't, and you get rid of Arteta, you're just going to go in the same cycle, that same process over and 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 over again. I personally don't think overall that Arteta's done terribly. I think with all things considered, and when you put everything into context, I don't think he's done a terrible job at all. I think he's actually done a pretty decent job. You could argue that maybe, yes, he could have done more, particularly in certain situations, or dealt with things in a certain way or a better way. But he's a young manager. He's still learning. And within time, this experience will definitely help him in the long run and make him become a better manager because of that. Maybe with a couple more transfer windows, maybe with certain players returning from injury, and maybe with just a level of consistency running through this entire club as a whole, from top to bottom, whether it's the hierarchy at the top, the club structure behind the scenes, the playing squad, whatever you want to call it. Maybe with consistency running throughout this entire squad, maybe in time these factors could turn around the fortunes of both Mikel Arteta and Arsenal Football Club. But of course, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions and ramblings of one man, this guy. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section what you think of Mikel Arteta, of Arsenal. How do you fare of his reign as manager so far? Do you think he should be sacked? Will he be sacked? Who would you bring in to replace him? I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments, opinions down in the comment section below. I'm sure they'll all make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. And I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.